Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And this morning on Lillian's interview, we have the pleasure of Harry S. Dent, Jr., who wrote a book called The Sale of a Lifetime, How the Great Bubble Burst of 2017 to 2019 Can Make You Rich. Good morning, Harry. How are you?
Good. Nice to be here, Lillian.
Oh, thank you for joining me. I read your book, and I found it fascinating because I never knew you could actually make money during everybody else's unhappiness.
That's right. I mean, you just go the opposite way. When stocks are bursting and real estate's bursting, you buy high-quality bonds, and they go up in value. They're the safe haven. The U.S. dollar went up in 2008 when other currencies fell. So, yeah, there are clear things you can do, but they're not the things most stockbrokers would tell you to do. This is a once-in-a-lifetime reset from the greatest debt bubble in history, which has also fostered the greatest financial asset bubbles in stocks and real estate and commodities and gold and silver and everything. And for a couple of years, my indicators show these things are going to have to reset back to normal, and it's going to be very painful to most investors and businesses. But the people who see it coming, it is the opportunity of a lifetime to grow your business when other businesses are failing and to have investments that preserve your capital and grow it so that you can buy all this stuff when it's down 70, 80% like stocks and commodities and stuff and gold and silver and really increase your wealth in a short period of time when most people are going to be losing in it, unfortunately.
So how does this differ from the Great Depression where people were jumping out of buildings?
Well, it's actually the same thing. I look at the economy over long periods of time, demographic cycles, and 4 seasons of our economy I've outlined over 80 years. And this is the same winter season that followed the bubble boom of the roaring 20s and crashed and had extreme debt deleveraging and business and bank failures in the early 30s. And, yes, people were jumping out of buildings. This is that same season, and it's just been – it started to happen in 2008, and governments around the world said, well, we're just going to turn up the heat in this winter season, and we're just going to keep this bubble from bursting. And that's what they've done. They've created another bigger bubble, and I tell you, in history, bubbles are very clear. They always burst, and they don't have soft landings when they burst. They burst very violently. Half of the burst happens in the first 2 to 3 months. So people who wait to see if people like me are right are going to get whacked right off the start. So this is a serious time. It happens once in a lifetime. And there's not hardly anybody alive that saw the Roaring 20s bubble and the Great Depression burst, which happens once in a lifetime. And so there's nobody to warn us about that except for people like me who study long-term cycles.
So why do we keep on doing it wrong at the same time over and over?
Well, bubbles are irresistible. That's what they do. When stocks and real estate and things and even gold are going up way faster than the fundamental economy, everybody's getting a free lunch. And now with quantitative easing, everybody's got a lower-cost mortgage and lower-cost car loans and all types of stuff. So it's kind of like a drug. It makes you feel good. And so when people like me say, hey, but wait a minute, this is not real, it's not fundamentally sound, and the government policies are not the right things, so you have to worry about this bubble bursting. People don't want to hear it. It's very hard to warn about a bubble. People hate people that warn about bubbles because we're getting something for nothing for a period of time, and we don't want it to end. But when it ends, it is serious. I mean, people get wiped out, businesses get wiped out, banks get wiped out. And again, this happens once in a lifetime throughout all of history. I've gone back in this book as far as you can go and show how bubbles build. It always starts with a debt bubble. It always ends up with financial asset bubbles. And then both of those have to burst and come down to reality. And most of that will happen in a 3-year period, like late 1929 to late 32. And I'm saying in this book, that period is probably mid-2017 into early 2020 or so that we're going to have this great reset. If you see it coming, get out of the way. You're going to be able to buy everything from investments to businesses to beachfront property at unbelievable prices. But if you buy them now and stay in them now, you're going to get wiped out. It's that kind of simple. And I'm not a bearish guy. I was the most bullish economist in the 80s and 90s, and he wrote a book called The Roaring 2000s. We said from the beginning, baby boomers are going to drive up this boom and bubble till 2007 when they peak in their spending as a generation, and then things are going to start to go the other way. And we've been living on quantitative easing ever since. That is something for nothing. Something for nothing policies don't work.
Yeah, well, they say this year, for example, that even though people spent a lot of money, the stores really, realistically, did not make as much money as they thought they were going to make. In fact, several brand stores are closing down their branches.
They're dying.
They're dying. So what should people do now to start preparing themselves?
Well, again, I think this Trump rally is what I look for in the final phase of a bubble. It gets very irrational. This guy gets elected by surprise, and people thought he was going to be a bad thing for the economy because he's kind of a wrecking ball and so unpredictable. And then suddenly the stock market says, no, he's going to create 4% growth, and we're going to go back to the 1950s and 60s and 80s and 90s economy. This isn't going to happen in an aging society. It's demographically impossible. Just ask the Japanese that have been stimulating their economy way beyond us for 25 years and are still at zero growth.
Yeah. Just look at them, and look at some of the other nations that are having problems with it. I was brought up, you pay either at the beginning, the middle, or there's a balloon payment at the end. But one does pay. So I don't understand why nobody else gets it.
Yeah, we've had this bubble. It's unreasonable. People love it. They don't want to hear it's going to end because everybody's making money on real estate and stocks, and the economy's holding up barely, even though it should be in a depression like it started to be in 2008. This is still going to come. You don't get from the winter season to the next spring boom without going through a debt deleveraging and these bubbles burst and coming back down to reality. And it's a good thing long term. The Great Depression was incredibly difficult, but we did nothing but grow after that. And if you'd have bought anything in 1932 or 33, real estate, stocks, commodities, gold, anything, it would have grown for decades to follow. If your business just survived that shakeout, you would have inherited much market share and would have grown for decades like General Motors did. So it's an extreme time of opportunity, but it's an extreme time of threat. And unfortunately, most people aren't going to see this coming.
Will it affect a lot of the businesses on the Internet?
Well, yeah, there'll be a shakeout on everything, but the Internet, Amazon's only going to grow stronger for this. Every day another Macy's or Sears store is closed. This is Amazon's growing market share, and this is what they're banking on. Jeff Bezos has been underpricing his products forever, like the Japanese did in the 70s, to gain market share to the point that he dominates the retail industry, and he is doing that. So even his sales will go down in this downturn, but it's going to make him stronger because more of his brick and mortar competition is going to go under, and it's already happening, and we're not even in the downturn yet.
So what you're basically saying then is to wait, bide your time, and when the market crashes, then that's the time to go in with the money you've saved and buy.
Exactly. And in your business, hunker down now or sell your business now and reinvest later. Everything is get out of the way of the bubble, because when major bubbles like this burst, like in the early 30s, everything goes down except the highest quality bonds and cash and the dominant currency like the U.S. dollar. Everything goes down. So you have to get out of the way of the bubble and then reinvest anywhere from 2 to 3, 4 years later as different things crash at different times. And the book looks at, this kind of scenario, what things are likely to bottom first in the years ahead. And real estate's going to be the last thing to turn around. And emerging country stock markets and commodities, which have gone down the most, are going to be the first to turn around, especially India is the China of the future.
Yes.
And India is going to benefit from the fall of China, which I show in this book. China is the greatest bubble in all of modern history, and it's going to have the biggest burst in the end. And economists think China's figured out a whole new formula to grow forever at 6 to 10%. Not going to happen. And Trump's not going to grow our economy at 4%. Not going to happen.
No. China has problems way before it ever joined the global market, and they haven't solved them yet, especially when their jobless is really over the hill.
Yeah, and they got more empty buildings than the rest of the world put together.
Yes, absolutely.
Condos, malls, office buildings, roads, bridges, railways. China has overbuilt everything, and they're going to pay the price big time when it crashes.
So, Harry, tell everybody where they can find you and your book and anything else that you feel that the audience needs to know now.
Yeah, the book just came out in the last week. You can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and major bookstores. And we have a free daily newsletter to get people to know us and convince them they need to make some major moves. And I think we may have about 4 to 6 months to do that. DentResearch.com. You just put in your web address and you're on our free newsletter, and we can go from there.
Okay, great. And so any words of wisdom before we close this out?
Well, again, realize that nobody's going to tell you about this. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Only occurred when most people then alive are now dead. Nobody's going to tell you about this. Nobody's going to warn you. You need to take this seriously, and you can't wait until the bubble bursts, because the first whack is usually 40 to 45% in stocks alone. So you got to be ahead of this game, and you got to be convinced enough. And that's why I said, read this book, get on our get on our newsletter. You need to be convinced enough to make some major moves that will not miss you much when things have gotten so overvalued, but could save you a fortune if you do the right things in the next year. Great.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Harry S. Dent, Jr., The Sale of a Lifetime, How the Great Bubble Burst of 2017-2019 Can Make You Rich. So this would take place after his first 100 days, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the final wave up. So it'll be the most irrational. I think we've got probably another 10% to go after going up 10% in a short period of time. I think my best guess, and I'm only guessing in the short term. Short term's hard. Long term's easy. That this will peak around July. So the worst crashes in history have tended to occur between like late July and late October. That's just when like the 87 crash happened and things like that, and that's the time to be really worried. And so I just want to have time with people in the next several months to convince them.
To get their act together.
Yeah, to get their act together.
Okay, great. Ladies and gentlemen, you can hear this stream all over again at Passionate World Radio Network, twitter.com/@Caldwell, CAULDWELL, Facebook.com/PWR Network LLC, YouTube.com/PWR Network LLC, GooglePlus.com/PWR Network LLC. Thank you very much for listening, and remember, to see the view, you got to climb the mountain. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thanks.